Hey everyone, welcome to the VR CEO podcast, sponsored by the amazing VR conferencing and education tool, Roomy. Woohoo! Why me when you can Roomy? Get it? Roomy? Pretty awesome. Good stuff. All right, 3, 2, 1, and we're live. All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the VR CEO podcast, episode number 7. Awesome. We have us with here, or have with us, how do you say that? Have with us here today, Eric, the wonderful and talented Eric Parks, off camera. Somewhere. There he goes.
Hello.
Running the podcast with me. And then we have Bess Auer, a online marketer, serial entrepreneur, just pretty much, online marketing badass is with us today. So
I like the way you introduced me. If only that were all true, that would be great.
Well, let's find out what's true and what's not. So Bess, why don't you go ahead and just tell us a little bit about yourself and we can go from there.
Okay, so I guess I'm best known in this realm for running the Florida Blogger and Social Media Conference, which is a one-day gathering of the state's biggest bloggers, online influencers, marketers, PR pros. And it's held every September at the Full Sail University, which if you haven't been there before, it's amazing. I know you've been there probably, Matt, but just it's an incredible venue. So we're lucky. This will be our 9th annual. And I actually just heard from Full Sail today that they think that we're kind of their longest running repeat event. So that's pretty cool. So we're excited. We'll be back there September 7th.
Nice.
And
wow.
yeah. So I started off though not as a blogger. I'm old. I'm almost 50 now, and and so I was up and working before there was anything really such as blogging or social media. So I actually was a classroom teacher for almost 20 years. I taught middle school English, if you can believe it.
Wow.
Yeah. So I actually loved teaching. I loved being in the classroom with the students. And we, our focus was on writing, creative writing, communicating through the written word. But soon as I kind of started blogging, I fell in love with the idea. And my first blog was called The Central Top. It's still around today. It's a lot of Orlandoans will use that to tune in to find out where they want to go do something this weekend. But cool. I started the conference because I wanted to attend a conference and I couldn't. There were no blogging conferences around except the really big ones in, Chicago or LA or New York. And as a teacher, I couldn't afford to take time off to go fly, stay in a hotel and attend these conferences. So I did the next best thing. I started my own here in Orlando. So that's
awesome.
How it started. Yeah.
Oh, wow. I love that journey. I love that so much that there's a problem, a pretty big problem, right? Like, how do I do this? It's something I want to do for whatever reason. Can't do it. So you know what? I'm just going to do it myself. That's great. Yeah, congrats to that. That's really good. So you're almost 50. So for the millennials out there, she basically has one foot in the grave. Is that right?
I do. Gosh.
Yeah, I'm 46, so I know the feeling. So I totally get that. I love that journey. It's interesting. So you taught is it English?
Middle school English, yeah.
Middle school English. How many years did you do that, and what was that like?
I did 17 years, and I loved it. So we placed an emphasis on, it was actually 6th grade. So I looked at my job as how can I get these kids to fall in love with language? My reluctant readers, what kind of books can I find for them that they will love? So, for my boy readers, we tried to find, there was this great Silverfin, which is a James Bond when he was a teenager. So there's this whole action adventure series with him, or a Rick Riordan series with the Greek gods. And, for my girls who usually, traditionally are more open to reading, we really placed an emphasis on, what can we do to make them want to be lifelong readers? And then with the written word, what can I do to motivate them to really care about their writing? So I actually had them go through the publishing process. So when I started out, they actually had to write for a real audience, like who would want to read this, who would pay to read this, and then they would actually research magazines where they could get published, and they actually went through the process of writing a query letter to the editors, the submission editors, and believe it or not, every year we had students that published their writing in real magazines. Some even got paid for it. So it was kind of interesting to see how their writing changed. Even my writers that hated writing, even some of my guys that hated writing, when they thought they could submit to Sports Illustrated, which they could, they all of a sudden really wanted to really craft this great story. So it really upped the motivation and the quality of writing. So it was a fun time. So blogging just made that easier because now they could publish themselves and not have to worry about, the gatekeeper of the editor and things like that. So it was a natural fit for us.
That's great. Yeah. So did you actually move from like chapter books or whatever they were writing to blogging during that time?
Right towards the end, yes. So
Okay.
They actually started keeping their own blogs, but they're middle school. They're still really young. Some of them aren't old enough to be on social media because they have to be 13 or older for a lot of these social sites. So it was a very tricky process. And, a lot of talks about their digital footprint because a lot of these kids were college bound and, over half of all colleges Google prospective applicants. And so the digital footprint, the cyberbullying, these were all conversations. So I wish it was just as easy as saying, hey, let's put our blog up and publish your writing.
Yeah. Well, I tell you what, life, it's not that easy anymore. When you and I were making our bones and coming up, there was no Google, there was no online
Thank
searching.
goodness. Oh my God.
I know. But I tell people, someone once asked me recently, actually, I think it was last week, I don't know, maybe last couple of weeks, they said, gosh, you're such a good public speaker. Would you ever consider running for office? And I said, heck no. My past would not survive that kind of scrutiny. There's no way I would ever do that. No way. Yeah. But it's interesting.
Funny.
Yeah, like this I think about that. So I would love to hear your thoughts on that, like this new world we're living in where, some kids have start a digital footprint at birth.
Yeah.
And what do you think about that? Like, especially with the whole college application process or job application process?
Yeah. So, when I first started blogging, mommy bloggers were kind of on the rise. And it was really interesting talking with them about kind of their rules, whether they posted pictures of their children at the time, whether they would mention their children's name or use a code name or just use a first initial. And nowadays, I don't think there's any question. They just put it out there with their kids and plaster them all over. And I kind of liked the old cautious moms that, were thinking, is this really in the best interest of my child? And so my son is now almost 23 years old, and he kind of grew up in the age of me evolving as an online, social media person. And oh my gosh, he never gave me permission to put anything about him online. So I looked like I was childless until he hit, college. Which is fine. It should be his decision. But, the other side of my life, when I stopped teaching, my husband and I founded Florida Swim Network, which is a blogging site, but we live stream swim meets. Believe it or not, there is there is a large audience for that. And so a lot of the swimmers were college bound. And so a lot of the college coaches we talked to said, I can't tell you how many swimmers we can no longer offer scholarships to because of something they've posted on social media.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So it's a big deal.
And you never know whether it is a big deal because you never know where that line is for them, right?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. It's so interesting. It's gosh, it goes into the whole. This would be a whole hour-long plus
I know.
Conversation around privacy rights and what can I post and what do you. It just goes on and on and on. Really interesting stuff. So that's a really I like that. That's a really interesting kind of path forward. Before we move on, I was going to ask you about the online education experience. So you saw that grow, right, from where you started, more traditional education, kind of that pedagogy to
Right.
today, right? Where it's very different.
Yeah. So, one of the wonderful things about today is entrepreneurs or startups can definitely find the information they need. And most times they can find it for free. Part of my morning routine is turning on YouTube and watching some type of marketing video. Like lately, I've been learning about social media in China because I've got a client that has an international audience. And there is no Facebook in China. There is no Twitter in China. So learning about their social media, but I get to do all this for free. I have this whole wealth of information out there. And then not only that, you have all the experts that are starting to create online courses. And so really, it's a great time to be alive. So much easier now than 9 years ago when I started FL BlogCon.
It is. It's a very, very different world. I mean, it's a different world now, right? Because you and I are speaking in VR, which wasn't possible not that
I
long
know.
ago, right? This would be a very flat two-dimensional experience and on a web call, and it would not be as engaging. I couldn't look over this way, see Eric, look at
Right.
you, and look at your photo. We just loaded your photo here, by the way.
Oh, let me see.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Cool.
and when people Google you from now on, they might actually see you with your pretty sweet Pancho Villa mustache
Oh,
that
I
we've given
like
you.
it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so
I'm
we have
taking a
to see
picture of that with my phone. Perfect.
excellent. I'm gonna give you a unibrow because I think it works on you. Actually,
It
it looks
really
good.
does.
Hold on, I'm gonna and then let's give you a little beard here.
The conquistador style.
I'm
I
digging
like it.
it.
Yeah, I like it. I think it looks good. Yeah. Yeah, it works on you. So from now on, when they Google you, let's hope they find this.
That's awesome.
It looks great.
So if
All
I
right.
turn, that's funny.
Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, yeah, that's really interesting because when I was growing up, and I grew up in poverty, I couldn't afford college.
Mm-hmm.
Even if I got scholarships, I'm like, there's no way I'm going to pay this back, right?
Right.
So I went into the workforce, and then later in life I went to college, but I was able to go kind of a mix online on campus and then fully online, and then my God, it just made my life so much easier.
Well, so I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but Full Sail allows students to actually be in their classes using using this type of software, right?
They do, yeah. Just so everyone knows, this is not about us. This is about Bess, but
No, I
they
know.
do.
I know.
Yeah, they do. But we have. I mean, it's interesting. We have so many customers around the world. We literally have 3,000 institutions using us for online education and corporate training.
Wow.
And Full Sail is Full Sail. First of all, Full Sail is amazing. They're our anchor customer. They're an amazing partner of ours, and they've been using Rumi for almost a full year, like a full 12-month cycle, to teach online game design inside virtual reality.
Wow.
And yeah, it's pretty amazing. It's interesting actually because when you're teaching about game design, you kind of have to draw flat XY coordinates on a flat Cartesian plane on a whiteboard, and drawing the Z-axis, it's just at an angle, it's still flat. But in VR, you can draw, like, for example, if I pull up let me pull up the 3D line drawer real quick here. If I pull up the 3D line drawer, I can do this. I can say, okay, so here's my X and Y axis, and then I have my Z axis, and I can draw in a three-dimensional space, right? And it's easier for students to cognitively process this information because they're learning it in a three-dimensional environment. It just makes sense. And Full Sail's been a pioneer in that regard.
That's amazing. And I'm just thinking, so my son goes to the university. No, sorry. I'm a Gator. He's a Florida State Seminole. We still love him.
Oh, boo!
But every semester, even though he's there on campus, every semester they require, I think, one online class because they can charge me more for it. I don't know why it ends up being more. But he never.
That's why.
Yeah, but he
That's
never does as well because I don't think they're interactive like this is. I think because this you feel. You're so much more aware of it. You feel so much more present in the class.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, there's a whole University of British Columbia uses us, and they published, I think, 6 videos. We didn't even know they did it. I just found them randomly Googling us one day. And it was interesting. It was the students talking about how engaging this type of immersive learning environment is and how it's better than the flat online
Sure.
educational experience. But it was interesting. But but going back to your blog, your BlogCon. So
Yep.
you have Florida BlogCon. It could be done in virtual reality, right? Like you could literally have an entire conference in VR, or you could augment your in-person experience through something
Right.
like this, right? Yeah. So
I'm
tell us
thinking
a little
about,
bit about. Go ahead.
I was going to
Sorry.
say, so we have sometimes tweet ups beforehand leading up to the conference. We could do a virtual
Oh,
tweet
cool.
up.
I love that. I love the tweet. First of all, I'm the CEO of a tech company. I've never heard the term tweet up.
What?
Should I feel bad about myself? I kind of feel like I
You-
should. What's a
You
tweet up?
definitely should. So a tweet up is just a meetup where everybody has their heads down tweeting. So it's still an in-person meetup. So we've done tweet ups at different restaurants for promotional. For example, Darden used to be one of our big sponsors. And so we'd all go to Bahama Breeze and have a tweet up there. So you have the physical of people being there, but then they're also promoting because they're all sending out tweets about it. We did a progressive tweet up one time. That was a lot of fun. We started at one restaurant for cocktails and made our way. So yeah, that's a tweet up.
That's my kind of tweet up. That last tweet up.
Yeah.
Get me on that one. I would love that. That's cool. Thank you. I learned. So hey, look, online education, immersive, in the moment. I just learned what a tweet up is.
There
Nobody
you
any better
go.
than that. Awesome. So tell us a little about the BlogCon. Let me see if I can pull it up here.
Let me see what you're pulling up before I start talking.
Okay, let's see here. Just
There we go.
the
Yeah.
homepage of your website.
Yeah, so Florida. So when I first started, so I wanted to attend the conference, couldn't afford to. So fortunately, at the time, doing the Central Florida Top 5, it was a community, local-oriented blog, and I got to meet several other bloggers that were doing the same thing that lived here in Orlando. And fortunately, some of them were pretty big. For example, Rochelle Lucas, who is at Travel Blogger, she's one of the top travel bloggers in the world, and she lives here in Orlando. We had Jeanette Johnson from Jay's Everyday Fashion. She's one of the most followed fashion bloggers. And we had, a lot of really great people. Visit Florida actually presented at our first conference. So what I did was I went around to all these I took them to coffee and I said, hey, I would love to put together a conference right here in Orlando. Would you please speak at it? I basically begged them. I said, I can't pay you anything because I have no idea if anybody will come, but would you share your knowledge? And I was so fortunate that everybody said, absolutely. So that very first year in my little gym at the school I was teaching, the maintenance guy and I were setting up the tables. We limited attendance to 100 bloggers because that's all the tables we had. My husband got a friend that worked at Costco, all their day old bakery they throw out, so they gave it to me. So I had that for snacks.
Great idea. Do that. Entrepreneurs, do that.
Yes.
That's such a good idea.
And then two of my teachers that I taught with said, hey, we'll come and help check everybody in. And we had little write-on name tags where people wrote their own name and stuck it on. So I think it probably cost me less than $50 because I paid $35 to the maintenance guy to help me set up tables to put on that first conference. And it was one of these really organic, amazing times where people really just came together to share their knowledge. It was 2011, I think, was our first year. And, it was just, so another good thing for entrepreneurs, filling a need at the right time. I was first to market, the first to kind of do that in this area. And it was filling a need. People were curious about how to take their blogs to the next level. And so I just happened to be lucky enough to fit in on that schedule with them. That blogging was just at the right moment, just starting to gain momentum when we started FL BlogCon. So the next year we moved to the Orlando Science Center, and that allowed us to double our attendance. And people said, we have more demand. So then we went to full sale for every year after that. So
Awesome.
we max out at 350 people because we take advantage of Full Sail's tech tables that they have. That way, when a blogger comes in, they sit down their computer and plug in, and everybody has the best seat in the house. And it's one of those days that feels like a big time conference because of Full Sail's facilities, but yet it's still a very, very much local and authentic and organic conference, if that makes sense.
It completely makes sense. Yeah, it totally makes sense. I love your grit. I love the kind of hardworking, you know what I mean? Like, look, I ain't apologizing for this. This is how it is. I'm not a startup, and I'm just going to do it. And we
Yeah.
talk about that a lot. So we've talked to a number of even if they're not an entrepreneur, like we talked to Hattie Briggs the other day. She's a singer-songwriter, but still very much embraces and embodies that entrepreneurial spirit. And really what it is we've talked about this a number of times already on this podcast, is someone asking you how to do it. How do I start a company? How would I start a blog? Like, how do I become, the number one travel blogger or whatever? Look, just do it.
Yeah.
There's the secret. Boom. There you go. Enjoy.
It's funny. It was funny that very first year. So they're all in the little school gym, and we're all, having this big powwow of, celebrating blogging and social media and stuff. And several people said to me, "Hey, Bess, once this goes big time, you can bring in some really big speakers." And I took offense to that because I was looking around and I said, well, you don't get any bigger in the travel industry than Rochelle Lucas. I mean, I was like, we have the big speakers. And I was born and raised in Florida. My mom was born and raised here. My grandmother was born and raised here. So I'm a huge advocate for Orlando specifically. But we make no bones about it. We are a Florida conference by Florida people for Florida people. Even though we do have people that attend from all over now, we've had people from Europe come and attend and stuff. We really focus on featuring speakers and influencers here from Florida. And that's part of my personal preference with that. So it's something we're proud that we've been able to do for 9 years now.
That's great. Yeah, that's really good. I love the local focus, that commitment to helping, local people in your region, whatever that is, kind of rise. Rising tide raises all boats, right? It's that
thing.
But I totally agree with you. It's like, well, look, I mean, this is big. What do you mean? Just wait until next year? Are you saying the people I have here aren't that good? I mean, everybody here is great. And by the way, I worked really hard to make this happen. So I'm proud of this. And every year it just gets successfully better, I'm sure, obviously.
Yeah, no, it's great. That first year I had several people that joined in with me that said, hey, I want to be a part of this. Josh Murdoch, who's at Professor Josh, he is he's one of my right-hand man. He is just awesome. So we've had several people that said, hey, I like what you're doing. I like that you're bringing us together. So, Josh Murdoch, we had Katie Widrick for several years, who is a huge influencer. She now lives in Tampa. Ben Reed, Jeanette Johnson, the fashion blogger, said, hey, I want to be part of this. So it was nice. I can't take all the credit myself. I wish I could. But, after that first year, it was nice to really have some people believe in it.
There's this Eric, I hear you murmuring over there like a creeper on the wall. Did you have something you wanted to say?
No, I was just going to say it's something Matt and I have talked about, of kind of the power of VR. It helps people improve from where they're at. So like you've done in Florida, having locals, people from Florida, basically powered by Florida, speak at your events. I think that's huge. And I think a lot of people miss the importance of improving the world from where they're at, making their community better. And then eventually that spreads. And with the power of VR, people can do that in places that they've never been able to do it before. And I think
wow.
It's hugely important.
Mm-hmm.
So I love that you did that. I think that's so cool that you stayed true to, empowering Florida.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you. But you were so right with the power of VR. I mean, the doors this opens. It's amazing.
Yeah, and I agree with those sentiments. There's this book that I love. There's two books that I read once a year, every year for probably the last 19, 20-ish years. The best business book I've ever read in my life, it's so perfectly put, it's a fun read, is The Log from the Sea of Cortez by John Steinbeck. It's an amazing book, and it's
As a business book. Okay.
hands down. It's hands down startup. As if you're starting a company, because it's all about them making mistakes, trying to load up this ship to go on this journey through the Sea of Cortez, and it talks about how they provisioned the ship and all the mistakes they made, and it's just a really fun read, and it's a perfect analogy for running a company.
Love it.
So read that, and then The Alchemist, and there's this, Alchemist. Do you know that
I've
book?
read it. Yes, absolutely.
It's an amazing book.
That's
I
a
love that
great
one.
book.
Yeah, one thing I love about The Alchemist is there's this quote in there. I'll get it wrong, so I'm paraphrasing, and it fits you perfectly, Bess. It's, look, when you put your life on a path to achieve some goal, all of the world will conspire to help you achieve that goal, and that's what happened to you with Florida BlogCon.
Love it. Love it.
Yeah.
It actually, so the whole staying true to Florida. So FA BlogCon was only kind of half my life. My other half was with that Florida Swim Network that my husband and I started, where we live stream swim meets. Mm-hmm. And we focused just on Florida swimmers. So my husband's a swim coach. My son was a swimmer. I was poolside, bored to death. If you've never been to a swim meet, oh my. They are not exciting unless your child is swimming, and even when they're swimming, unless they're winning, it's not exciting. So I said to my husband, I'm like, what can I do? He said, well, why don't we try and get this? It was called webcasting back then. It wasn't even live streaming. So we went to Best Buy and bought this little eyeball camera, and that's what I used. But we had people started texting as soon as they found out what I was doing, that I was webcasting this swim meet. And we had 300 viewers tune in. So we said, well, that's a business. So we started Florida Swim Network, and we focused on promoting and featuring. So whenever we write blog posts or meet summaries or stuff, it was always about swimmers in the state of Florida. We didn't worry about Michael Phelps. We didn't worry about Katie Ledecky or Missy Franklin and all these swimming stars from elsewhere. We had a lot of great swimmers here in the state of Florida. And our audience appreciated that. In fact, when we went to the Olympic trials, we had 150 swimmers from the state of Florida that were trying out for the U.S. Olympic team. So we covered all 154. We didn't worry about covering how Michael Phelps did. We covered swimmers from Florida. And I mean, we had, I can't remember the number of page views we had on our website that month for the Olympic trials. And then, so our audience appreciated it so much that they actually sent us to Rio to cover Team Florida, as we called it, which was, I think we had 52 swimmers from 25 countries that train in the state of Florida swimming in Rio. And so they sent us to Rio to cover just the Florida swimmers. We didn't care how anybody else did. We were reporting on the Florida swimmers. So I think by staying true to your mission, it really will pay off in dividends.
Absolutely. That is amazing. I would love to learn more about that. That sounds like a really, really interesting experience. I know you have...
We're out of time, I know.
Yeah, I know. I'm looking at my really amazing Samsung watch that I have.
Love it.
But you have such an amazing life. I love your journey. We definitely must have you on again, please.
Oh, goodness. I would love it. And since I can do it without having to put any hair or makeup effort, I can just change my avatar. That's a no-brainer.
I love it. I love that so much. Yeah, that is another big benefit of VR, actually, right? Hey, no hair and makeup. I mean, I love that.
I could be catfishing you guys totally in virtual reality here.
I wouldn't be surprised, actually, if you were doing that. Yeah, that's totally you. So, yeah, probably happening, actually. It's probably happening. So one thing we do is we ask every guest to give us one thing that they think people should embrace and one thing to avoid. It could be anything. It could be an app. It could be, avoid cable television. I don't know, whatever, a burrito stand, whatever you want. One thing to embrace, one thing to avoid.
Okay, so one thing to embrace, if you, reading Dune by Frank Herbert, if you haven't ever read it. Have you read it? Have you read it?
Have you read it? Have you read it? I have read it. I cannot quote it back to you. I have read it, but I remember when I read it, I was in, I think, the 7th grade, and Jesus, it was a thick book.
Yeah, that's way too early.
I think they're making a remake of that, though.
A movie. That's why I'm saying lean into it. Read the series. And actually, there's 3 prequels to read before you get to Frank Herbert's original series, but you need to read all of them. They're
Okay.
fast reading as adults, so they're amazing. These are books that I go back and reread every 5 to 7 years. So I've read them
Awesome.
countless times. They're amazing.
Cool. Love it.
Talking about life, politics, business, supply and demand, all that, it's in there. So there you go.
Excellent. Let the spice flow kind of stuff. Yeah,
yes,
got it. Excellent.
Absolutely.
Cool.
Things, and the whole fake news that is
Yep.
in the news now. I mean, Frank Herbert was on top of that all before, flooding and trying to sway populations. Anyway, it's all in there. So
Awesome.
Too complex for your seventh grade self. So read it again as an adult.
Yeah, I will for sure. Yes, I may still be. It may still be a little too complex for my brain, but I will give it a try. I will definitely give it a try.
And then
pick up the Cliff Notes version.
No, you'll miss it. So
in
good.
Canada, they're called the Coles Notes, just for our Canadian viewers. But yes, Cliff Notes. Anyway, I will 100% do that, and I will report back to you.
There we go. And then things to avoid: Beats.
Like the headphones?
No, like the food.
Oh, Beats. Oh, why?
Beets. Because they're
like
the
beets?
grossest thing in the world. No.
Have you ever had borscht?
Yes, actually the Russian soup. Yeah, but that you can, yes, but you don't taste the beets in borscht even though it comes from that. So, but still.
That is true, yeah.
You really don't, yeah.
So no beets, no beets.
No beets.
Perfect. Well, I will take that to heart. Awesome. All right, well, hey, really wonderful to have you on, Bess. Thank you so much. Definitely want to have you back, please.
Thank you very much. And Eric, it was nice meeting you guys. And I look forward to watching this on YouTube.
Yeah, we'll be posting them shortly. See you, Bess.
Awesome.